Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, jointly with Civil Service and Labor. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go to the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. I am Councilmember Pirina Sanchez, Chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, and today we're holding a hearing on the topic of worker safety and the effects of climate change on labor, jointly with Chair Carmen de la Rosa and the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. We are joined by Councilmember Caban this morning. In June of 2023, New York City was enveloped by smoke from Canadian wildfires, manifesting a new climate-related threat in the form of dangerous air quality. These new threats, in conjunction with the rising temperatures our city grapples with year after year and fiercer rain and snowstorms, pose significant dangers to all New Yorkers, but especially these outdoor workers with little choice but to endure the climate-related conditions they must in order to make a living. As the City Council continues to work toward advancing climate-related protections for our citizens and infrastructure, we must ensure that outdoor workers such as deliveristas, street vendors, construction workers, and many others are afforded necessary protections. We will be hearing a number of bills today. Intro 261, sponsored by Councilmember Rita Joseph, which will allow 6-story residential buildings with certain parameters to be built with only one staircase. Intro 1376, sponsored by Councilmember de la Rosa, would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to post on the department's website information on best practices for protecting workers from extreme weather, such as extreme heat, extreme cold, and low air quality. Intro 1384 by Councilmember Lee would amend the definition of site safety training card in the New York City Building Code to require that an applicant for such card complete at least 2 SST credits related to mental health and wellness, suicide risk and prevention, and alcohol and substance misuse. Intro 1404, sponsored by myself, is a bit unrelated but will correct a discrepancy in the New York City Administrative Code to allow the occupancy of cellar units in certain 1 and 2 family dwellings, and Resolution 1015 by Councilmember de la Rosa, which condemns Alden Global Capital cuts and managerial hostility toward unionized daily news staff and calls on the hedge fund to reach a contract deal with the newspapers union. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank my team, Chief of Staff Maria Villalobos, my Deputy Chief of Staff for Land Use Policy and Budget, Ben Ratner, Gerard Fernandez, Carla Dominguez, and my Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications and Public Engagement, Kim Castellanos. I'd also like to thank the Housing and Buildings Committee staff, Senior Legislative Counsel Austin Malone, Legislative Counsel Billy Eck. Welcome to your first hearing. Senior Policy Analyst Jose Conde, Policy Analyst Dirk Spencer, Finance Analyst Carla Naranjo, and Data Scientist Reese Hirota. We're joined today, I've already called out, anybody else? Councilmember Moya has joined us virtually, and I'll now recognize Councilmember de la Rosa for opening remarks on behalf of the Committee on Civil Service and Labor.
Thank you, Chair Sanchez. Good morning and welcome to today's hearing of the New York City Council's Committee on Civil Service and Labor and Housing and Buildings. I'm Councilmember Carmen de la Rosa. I would like to start by thanking Chair Sanchez and the Housing and Buildings Committee for convening this hearing to discuss the safety of our city's outdoor workers and the ways in which they are being impacted by the accelerated effects of climate change. New Yorkers are known to be tough, but even the most resilient among us are struggling as extreme climate events have become more frequent. Excessive heat, disastrous storms, and dangerous air quality hazards have become increasingly common and threaten the health and safety of our city. No one feels this more acutely than the outdoor workers who face these difficult conditions day after day. Too often, they are paid less and afforded fewer labor protections than those employed working indoors. It is our responsibility to ensure that strong safety guidelines are in place to protect these workers and reduce preventable injuries and fatalities. Given the lack of national heat protection standards, we are glad that the state is considering the TEMP Act, which will require employers of outdoor workers to provide water and shade, monitor employees for symptoms of heat illness, and implement other precautions to mitigate the effects of extreme heat. This state legislation is crucial to provide New Yorkers with a uniform set of guidelines that protect outdoor workers. Furthermore, I'm proud to sponsor Intro 1376, which would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to post guidelines on its website on how workers can be protected from extreme climate events. In addition to the oversight topic and the related legislation, I'm happy that we are here hearing Resolution 1015, which expresses support for the writers, editors, and staff at the Daily News Union. Local journalism is a backbone of our city's civic life, keeping New Yorkers informed and holding institutions accountable. The cuts and managerial hostility imposed by Alden Global Capital undermine the Daily News staff. I urge my colleagues to join me and sign on to this resolution, and we are hopeful that good faith negotiations will lead to improved working conditions soon. I'd like to thank the committee staff, Senior Policy Analyst Elizabeth Arts, and Senior Legislative Counsel Ria Asawara for their hard work in preparing for this hearing, and my staff, Chief of Staff James Burke, Comms Director Free Familia, and a welcome back to our Deputy Chief of Staff, Kiana Diaz, who's back from maternity leave. And we've recognized all our colleagues here, so I'll turn it back to Chair Sanchez. Oh, Councilmember Dinowitz, how can I forget my neighbor in the mighty District 11? Councilmember Dinowitz has joined us as well.
Some uptown rolling deep in this hearing.
I know.
Before we recognize the administration to read your remarks, I'm going to read an opening statement by Councilmember Rita Joseph regarding her legislation. Intro 261 proposes an amendment to the New York City Building Code related to means of egress in certain new buildings. Intro 261, which I first introduced during my first year on the council and reintroduced in February of 2024, would allow certain new residential buildings to be constructed with only one staircase if they meet the following conditions: no more than 6 stories tall, built to fireproof construction standards, no more than 4,000 square feet per floor, no more than 20 feet from any apartment door to the exit staircase. New York City urgently needs more housing, especially affordable housing. This bill helps facilitate new construction while prioritizing resident safety, which remains one of our top concerns. I want to thank everyone who contributed to drafting this bill, and I look forward to hearing feedback from the administration, all the groups and individuals from both sides to ensure we make this legislation as effective and safe as possible for all New Yorkers. Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to our council to administer the oath.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and to answer all council member questions honestly? Thank you. You may begin.
Good morning, Chair Sanchez and De La Rosa, members of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, and members of the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. I am Guillermo Patino, Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Legal Affairs at the New York City Department of Buildings. I'm joined today by several of my colleagues, including Gus Sarakis, Deputy Commissioner for Development and Technical Affairs, Ronaldo Cabrera, Assistant Commissioner for Investigations and Compliance, Frank McCartan, Assistant Commissioner for Emergency Services, and Keith Wen, Assistant Commissioner for Code and Zoning Interpretation. We're also joined by Thomas Correo, Chief of Fire Prevention at the New York City Fire Department. I'm pleased to testify before the committees regarding Intro 261, which would allow certain residential buildings to be constructed with only one exit stairway. Intro 1384, which would require the Department's Site Safety Training Program to include a component addressing mental health and wellness, suicide risk and prevention, and alcohol and substance abuse. And Intro 1376, which would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to post guidance regarding best practices for protecting workers from extreme weather. Intro 261 would amend Section 1006.3.2 of the New York City Building Code to expand the circumstances in which single exit stairways are permitted in R2 occupancy buildings. The R2 occupancy classification includes apartments and other residential buildings. The department has significant concerns regarding the proposed amendments, as allowing more buildings to have single exit stairways poses significant safety risks. Pursuant to Section 1006.3.1 of the Building Code, a minimum of 2 exits are required for egress in buildings where the occupant load does not exceed 500 people per floor. Section 1006.3.2 currently provides 7 exceptions to that requirement by setting forth the scenarios in which a single stairway may be allowed. Item 7 of Section 1006.3.2 allows a single stairway where the building is 6 stories or less and the square footage per floor does not exceed 2,000 square feet. In general, the 2,000 square foot standard serves to limit the number of apartments located on a single floor of a building, which in turn limits the number of occupants per floor, allowing one stairway to be sufficient for egress. Intro 261 would amend item 7 to increase the floor area allowance from 2,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet per floor. An increase to 4,000 square feet per floor would essentially double the number of apartments allowed per floor, and in turn potentially increase the occupant load by 100%. Additionally, item 7 requires the building's occupancy to be classified as R2, but does not limit its applicability to just apartment floors. As written, this section does not account for the potential presence of an accessory amenity or assembly space that may have up to 74 persons in the gathering spaces. This, when combined with the expansion of the square footage proposed in Intro 261, would increase the occupant load on the single stairway to a level that poses significant safety concerns for egress in emergency situations. The department has conferred with our colleagues at the fire department who share our concerns with the bill. The fire department also expressed concerns about the dangers of responding to fires and other emergencies in single exit stairway buildings. Large single stairway buildings pose serious fire safety risks and challenges to first responders and firefighting operations. Increasing the occupant load of these buildings would only compound these challenges. In buildings with a single stairway, the same stairway must be used as both the evacuation stairway for occupants and the stairway for firefighters to run hoses, conduct searches, perform fire suppression procedures, and other operations. This can quickly become a hazard and could impede evacuation and firefighting operations. Turning now to Intro 1384, the department is supportive of this legislation, which would require that the site safety training curriculum include mental health and wellness, suicide risk and prevention, and alcohol and substance misuse training. The site safety training curriculum already addresses drug and alcohol awareness, and the department has no objection to incorporating mental health and wellness as well as suicide risk and prevention into the 40-hour course curriculum for site safety training. Given that this bill is proposing to amend the definition of site safety training card in the building code, the department would like to take this time to also address issues that have come to light as the SST program has been implemented. Site safety training cards, once issued, are valid for 5 years and can be renewed contingent upon successful completion of the required refresher training within the 1 year preceding submission of a renewal application. The department recently became aware of an issue where workers must retake the full course and reapply for the SST card rather than renewing due to language in the building code that does not allow for flexibility when SST cards are up for renewal. Take, for example, the scenario where a worker's SST card expires today and the worker completed all required refresher credits prior to the expiration date but was unable to obtain the printed card before the end of the day. If the worker goes to get their card tomorrow, the provider is unable to print and issue the card because it is past the expiration date. As a result, the worker then has to take the full course again to be issued an SST card. Delays in obtaining the physical card prior to the expiration may be due to such things as the worker's inability to get to the course provider's location or problems with the machine used to print the card. The department has received significant feedback from the industry regarding the challenges this presents and the impact it has on work sites. As such, we'd like to propose amendments to the bill to allow for a grace period following the card expiration to address situations such as this. The building code provides for a grace period for other certifications such as suspended scaffold installers, adjusters, repairs, maintainers, users, or removers, so the proposed change would be consistent with that. One additional change we'd like to propose is expanding the qualification pathways to obtain an SST card. Currently, applicants can obtain an SST card, which is required for all workers at a major building site, through one of 3 qualification pathways, which includes completing OSHA training and additional SST credits as specified by the department. Those seeking a site safety manager or site safety coordinator certification must complete the DOB-approved 40-hour site safety course. The 40-hour site safety course covers the topics already addressed in the OSHA 30 course, but the 40-hour site safety course is not currently recognized as a pathway to qualify for an SST card. Therefore, under the current regulatory scheme, a worker seeking an SSM or SSC certification would likely have satisfied one of the 3 qualification pathways for obtaining the SST card, as well as completing the 40-hour site safety course. We've received feedback from the industry regarding the cost and time to complete the training that is duplicative. If the OSHA 30-hour course is acceptable, the department believes the 40-hour site safety course should also be acceptable. As such, the department would like to further amend the site safety training card definition to include the 40-hour site safety course as a qualification pathway and the potential to include additional comparable qualification pathways by rule as other training options may become available in the future. Finally, turning to Intro 1376, the department has been asked to provide testimony regarding this bill on behalf of the Health Department. Intro 1376 would require the Health Department to post guidance regarding the best practices for protecting workers from extreme weather conditions, such as extreme heat. The administration supports this legislation as extreme weather events pose recognized occupational health risks and are found to be associated with higher accident rates, illness, injuries, and deaths. The New York State Department of Labor has also produced employer guidance to protect workers from extreme precipitation, extreme heat, extreme cold, and wildfire smoke. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. We welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to start with the questions. Well, first of all, thank you for providing some testimony on behalf of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So I'm going to skip some of those questions because I imagine, the department is not here, so I imagine that we're not going to answer too many questions around something that is under the authority of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, but I appreciate you expressing support for my legislation here. And I do want to ask you a little bit about DOB's sort of role in providing safety for workers. Does DOB have an estimate of how many construction workers work outdoors?
We don't have an estimate on how many construction workers work outdoors. That number can fluctuate during the lifespan of a construction project, as the phase of the construction project progresses. However, the State Department of Labor has estimated that there are approximately 150,000 workers in the construction industry in New York City. However, we believe that might be an undercount because department-approved course providers have issued over 500,000 site safety training cards to workers, which indicates that there's more than 150.
What was that number?
Over 500,000 site safety training cards. I can get you the exact number.
Thank you. Yeah. And how many construction sites, to your knowledge, were inspected for heat safety compliance during the summer of 2024, and who conducts those types of inspections?
So the Department of Buildings doesn't perform heat safety compliance related inspections, as that's not a matter that we regulate. Mm-hmm. So OSHA has jurisdiction over worker safety and places certain requirements on employers related to heat, which include planning to protect workers from developing heat-related illnesses, for example, and OSHA would be responsible for enforcing those requirements. Further, I would add that it's not common that we receive reports related to heat at the Department of Buildings. Since 2020, we've received approximately 10 notifications that there was a heat-related incident at a construction site, and that works out to about 2 or 3 heat-related incidents reported to DOB per year.
Thank you for that. I guess my other question, probably you won't be able to answer, but the question was, how many heat-related 911 calls come in through construction work sites to the city? Do you happen to have that?
Conferred with our colleagues at the fire department regarding that question, and that's not information that is readily attainable. There isn't a good way to pull out that information, right?
Okay. No, fire, what about FDNY? You wouldn't have that type of information in terms of 911 calls that come in on heat-related construction sites?
Yeah, that wasn't something that we were, I was personally asked, as Chief of Fire Prevention, and good morning to everybody. I think that, we would have to look at that further and see what data is available. So when our emergency medical services respond, they do fill out a patient care report, advanced care report if it's a paramedic. And there is information that is put on there, and especially as they're, transported to a hospital. But we would have to, do the data analysis on that. And if we could get back to you and try to see if that information is available.
That would be helpful. Going back to DOB, I know you spoke in your testimony, Deputy Commissioner, about the SST cards and sort of your role in that. There was a lot of information that you provided us. If there is one step that you could identify to make that process a little bit less convoluted, less complicated, what would be a step that you think we should be taking as a city to kind of deal with some of the different overlaps between safety protocols that exist right now?
Well, We've been implementing the site safety training program for quite a few years at the Department of Buildings. I believe the original legislation that enacted the site safety training program was passed in 2018. And we've seen very good compliance with that program. Very proud of the work that the agency's done and that the industry's done to get their workers trained. 500,000 SST cards issued over the recent years is a pretty monumental feat. And also, we're seeing very good compliance from the construction industry. We issue very few violations related to site safety training cards. And I would say that two of the steps that we could take are the ones that we outlined in our testimony, one of which is expanding the qualification pathway so that certain workers don't have to receive duplicative training, and then also providing a grace period after a card expires for some reason or another so that workers have more of an opportunity to refresh their training versus receiving the full complement of training. I don't know if my colleague has anything to add to that. No.
Could you speak a little bit more to when the trainings are duplicative, how are you receiving that information? Are workers sort of expressing to you all that they're having to compile both of these trainings? How is Department of Buildings what's the role in ensuring that communication is happening?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ronaldo Cabrera. I'm the Assistant Commissioner in charge of investigations and compliance. I work with the Training Compliance Unit, and that's one half of the team that works with course providers. The other side of the shop is the course provider administration team. And so often we get communication from the course providers themselves directly to us, and the discussion is around the fact that sometimes they have students who come to them who have to retake some of the courses just to fit with the requirements of the SST card. So the proposal today would expand the pathway to allow folks to get the training without having to repeat the courses.
Do you feel that in your analysis of this, the communication, the workers know when they're falling in between, the communication to let workers know that they're falling in between these gaps is sufficient?
I mean, it can always be better, but we do work closely with our course providers to message out. And we issue through the platform that we use, which is called Training Connect. That's the system that prints the cards. We have the ability to send a mass notice, but we're in constant communication with the course providers to let them know that we're seeing trends in certain areas. Sometimes we get calls directly from students. We work closely with unions. We work closely with the schools, universities that are also part of the course provider program. And so there is a constant communication. And again, like I said, on the other side of the shop, the course provider team, they deal with the course providers on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair De La Rosa. So I wanted to start with questions relating to staircase requirements. And so let me scroll here. So can you, Deputy Commissioner, can you start by elaborating on why the Department of Buildings believes that the bill shift from 2,000 square feet per floor to 4,000 square feet per floor poses significant safety risks? Our understanding is that 6-story buildings with 2,000 square feet per story can already be built with single staircase. So I just want to understand, going back to the formation, right, the initial writing of code with 2,000 square feet versus your position today.
Colleague Keith Wen, Assistant Commissioner for Coding Zoning Interpretation, is going to assist with questions pertaining to that bill. I believe he has to be sworn in, though.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm Keith Wen, Assistant
Sorry, just
Commissioner.
1 second. Just
Yeah,
raise your
sure.
right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and to answer all council member questions honestly?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning. So this is Keith Wen, Assistant Commissioner for Code and Zoning Interpretation at DOB. So I think to answer your question, we believe that the current New York City Building Code, Section 1006.3.2, already outlined 7 scenarios where one exit would be permitted. And we believe that Intro 261, Item 7 specifically, does not provide sufficient safety requirements for the one exit condition.
Can you elaborate on what those 7 exceptions are?
Out of the 7, there are 5 conditions that are in line with the International Building Code, IBC, currently. There's also item 6, which is limited to 4 stories, 3 apartments per floor, additional safety features for the staircase, and also has to be in a non-combustible construction condition. Item 7, as you already know, it's limited to 6 stories, also non-combustible, and but it's only limited to 2,000 square feet per floor, as opposed to the intro 261 is looking for 4,000 square feet per floor.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay, so moving on to some of the issues that you flagged, Mr. Cabrera, regarding the rigid requirements around site safety training cards. Can you remind us when the site safety training program came into effect, which year?
The actual program? So the first deadline, I believe, was December of 2019, where there was a 30-hour requirement minimum, and then subsequent deadlines came. You may recall some of them were pushed based on triggering events, and so the eventual timelines were expanded.
Got it. Okay, so 6 years, 500,000 workers trained at this point. And do you have numbers regarding how many workers, an estimate how many workers have been affected by these rigid requirements? Like, we did this course, not that course, we missed the deadline by a day.
The number, no, we don't have an exact number, but there's enough, we've received enough complaints from workers, mostly through the course providers, that folks are not able to print cards because, again, the platform, the Training Connect platform, the logic was built that if on that date your card expires, the system will not allow you to be able to print a card. So what happens is a student or a worker will take a course, let's say on a Thursday or Friday, they complete the course, the instructor loads up the certificates into the platform, but the admin person who works at that course provider maybe doesn't show up till Monday. So Monday morning, they try to go to print, and they're unable to print because the card is expired.
Thank you. That is, I imagine, very frustrating. And you need legislation. The council, this needs to be in the council bill in order to change. You can't do this administratively or...
Well, the code is silent on the expiration, on the a grace period. So you have other sections of the code in other contexts, scaffold cards, for example, where if the card expires, you have a 12-month grace period.
Okay.
Here, you don't have that. In a license, same thing. You have a grace period. This is the only card where it's silent, and so when time came to look at the code and the logic was built, it's like, well, it's silent on this issue, so
Yeah.
perhaps that was the intent, but perhaps it was just an oversight, and so if there's an opportunity to correct it,
Now, there were some really good writers on that legislation.
yes, there's definitely good writers, but certainly, obviously, sometimes that happens where things you could not have anticipated until the issue came to light. And so when we started getting these phone calls, we just started to realize that, if the opportunity came, that we would need to bring this up to at least have the discussion and propose it, and hopefully they'll get implemented.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that we were joined by Councilmember Abreu, Councilmember Menin, and Councilmember Aviles. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for that clarification. Okay, so taking a step back, sort of in line with some of the questions that Councilmember De La Rosa has asked, thank you, Department of Buildings, for being here today, speaking on worker safety. But the umbrella of the hearing today is very broad. So what is your sister agency or office that is taking up this issue of ensuring that workers are safe in the context of the impacts of climate change?
My understanding is that OSHA is the primary entity responsible for worker safety, including, on heat-related issues.
Okay, but a city agency?
I'm aware of certain work that other agencies conduct. For example, the health department will regularly post information on their website pertaining to, working in heat conditions, which is why they express support for Councilmember De La Rosa's legislation. And also the emergency management, they also send out, notices when there's going to be high heat conditions, air quality conditions, for example. And we take emergency management's lead on certain issues as well. So we'll do weather advisories, including when there's extreme heat. And those weather advisories will point to the OSHA guidelines for working in heat conditions.
Got it. Does the department have a position on the state's TEMP Act, the proposed TEMP Act?
We don't have a position on it, no.
Do you have information, any numbers today regarding, I know you mentioned no 911 data, but 311 data around heat and air quality complaints on the one hand? And then do you have information, it's not your agency, but do you have information on how many alerts, how many alerts NISM issued last year relating to heat, relating to air quality?
Regarding the question pertaining to the NISM alerts, we'll follow up with our partner agency on that and get back to you. Regarding complaints related to heat, we're only aware of the ones that pertain to construction sites. So contractors, permit holders are required to report incidents to DOB. And since 2020, we received 10 reports of heat-related incidents. In 2023 and 2024, it was 3 per year, and we can certainly follow up with additional information about those reports as well.
Thank you, that would be great. From the Department of Buildings perspective, on construction sites, they're dealing with a lot of different materials, volatile compounds. Are there any concerns that the agency has or any guidelines around not being around certain kinds of materials beyond certain temperatures?
So again, that would be an OSHA issue. So OSHA has, requirements that they place on employers, including, for example, making sure that employees have the proper equipment for the scope of work that they're going to conduct, and they've also done guidance related to heat.
Thank you. And are Department of Buildings inspectors trained on these OSHA regulations? Are you looking out for them when you're on a construction site?
No, but we're not enforcing OSHA regulations.
And there's no assistance? No?
No.
Okay. Got it, thank you. And then I imagine what the answer is, but on air quality concerns and the air quality indices that we've seen last year and this year related to wildfires, is that also an OSHA issue, or has Department of Buildings considered any changes around worker protections?
So I've received some information from the health department related to air quality concerns. So that's a measure produced by the EPA, so the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, but DOHMH provides the value of air quality on their environment and health data portal. So that's something they have online, so they do provide those values. And then there's also some tracking that's done related to air quality, and based on the health department's general guidance, they recommend that New Yorkers avoid strenuous activity and more than an hour outdoors at AQIs of between 201 and 300, and that all outdoor activities are ceased when there's AQI greater than 300. But the city didn't have any days in 2024 that exceeded that AQI.
Thank you. I have a question on solar. Just thinking about not just solar, but any like green upgrades that buildings are conducting. I imagine that there's been an uptick in applications, permit applications to the Department of Buildings, as the federal government has done away with by December of this year with the IRA credits. So I'm wondering if the Department of Buildings has seen an uptick in permit applications for things like solar, roof replacements, any other of the work that requires permits. I'm not sure if window replacements do and that kind of work. So on the one hand, have you seen an uptick in permit applications? Two, do you have the capacity that you need to make sure that New Yorkers are able to take advantage of the IRA credits before they go away? And third, for the workforce that is doing this work, are there any safety protections that you have been considering or any concerns that the agency has and you're looking out for?
My understanding is that we have seen an increase in applications for solar installations in recent years. I don't have the numbers with me, but I can certainly follow up with that information. But my understanding is that there has been an increase. In recent years, there's also local laws 92 and 94 that were passed that require that all new buildings either install solar or green roofs. My understanding is that they primarily go with solar where they're able to. So we'll certainly follow up with that data. And I'm not aware of any issues processing those permit requests, but I'll also look into that and follow up.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that we are joined by Councilmember Ressler. And Councilmember Ressler, you have a question? No problem.
While he gets ready, right? I do want to ask about OCME investigations into deaths, and I'm not sure if you're able to answer it, but in the tragic cases where workers die from heat stress or from existing conditions that are exacerbated by heat, how does the administration communicate between agencies about the circumstances of that employee's death?
So I have some information that OSCME provided to our agency before the hearing, so I'll share that with you, and then certainly follow up with them if there's any additional questions. So the information that they provided is that for all cases that fall within their jurisdiction, they're responsible for determining and reporting the cause and manner of death to the Health Department's Bureau of Vital Statistics, which manages the city's official mortality data. OCME may also provide preliminary findings to investigative agencies if inquiries are received. And then once the case is finalized, the investigative case file can be released to the family and to investigating stakeholders, including agency partners upon request.
So who do they report after an autopsy or determining the cause of death? Who do they report to with their findings? Which agencies?
The Department of Health.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Ressler?
Great, thank you to both chairs who really do a phenomenal job. Thank you, Chair Sanchez and Chair De La Rosa, for your leadership, and I really want to thank Chair De La Rosa for her great resolution in condemning Alden Global Capital for their terrible mismanagement of the Daily News and their fundamental disrespect for workers. I wanted to just focus my questioning today on air quality. We have experienced multiple kind of extreme air quality events in New York City during the Adams administration, notably the wildfires from Quebec a couple of years ago now, where the administration was caught totally flat-footed and unable to effectively communicate out to the public what we should all do to stay safe. And I'm particularly interested in what you all have learned since then and how we're communicating with workers when there are extreme air quality events. When the air quality is unsafe, what are agencies doing now to advise workers, particularly construction workers and others who are working outside, to navigate challenging conditions?
I ask my colleague Frank McCartan, Assistant Commissioner for Emergency Services, to join us to address your question.
Thank you. How are you, Guillermo? Are they being nice to you today? Good. Frank, good to see you.
Good to see you. Council, Chair. So we convey an interagency meeting with NYSEM. That information about heat and air quality is given to us. We take that information and we put it out on social media. The press office goes out and sends it. On the heat-related issues, what we do is we do a press release when it hits a heat warning, which is 104 and above, and those qualities then go out to the industry, so make sure the industry knows what's going on.
Okay, so just so I understand, appreciate that, there's a valuable bully pulpit from the mayor's office, NISM, et cetera, to get the word out about extreme weather incidents. But when we are in instances of poor air quality, where it's dangerous to be outside and straining yourself for extended periods of time, or extreme heat, where it's dangerous to be outside and straining yourself for extended periods of time, could you walk us through in more specificity the industry engagement beyond just the kind of general notification to the public that there's a concern? What are we doing specifically to inform employers about what risks their workers are facing?
We're
and what
using
they
the
should do?
social media side of that particular process, basically. That's what we're doing.
Do you think that we should be better engaging the sector, the construction sector, to let them know about the specific risks that workers are facing and what needs to be done to keep people safe?
Councilmember, I'm open to any type of communication in the event of any type of emergency is the basis where I come from. So
Yeah.
I would love to have those conversations with you and the council and the chair and my departments that respond to those type of emergencies. I'd be open to those suggestions
I appreciate
that you
it.
have.
I think I'd be happy to chat with you further about it. I just am, when we saw the extreme air quality event about 2 years ago, and the administration was totally unprepared, we had everything from street homeless New Yorkers to construction workers kind of continuing their lives as normal without a shift in policies and protocols that were needed to keep people safe. And I have not yet seen the planning and preparation for the next extreme air quality event. And unfortunately for extreme heat, this is just a reality that we are facing more and more and more every year. There's, twice as many extreme heat days as when I was a kid, and it's getting worse by the year. And we all know that extreme heat is the #1 source of death from, climate change. And so workers who are outside, straining themselves for 8 or 10 plus hours a day are the ones who are in the most vulnerable conditions. And I just want to make sure that we're giving clear and conservative guidance for how they can stay safe in these moments and in these conditions, because they are an increasing reality that we unfortunately have to reckon with. And I think this is a good package of legislation, and I commend my colleagues, for their innovation and leadership. But I really am most focused on, how do we do a better job of making clear to employers what are the steps they should be taking to keep their workers safe or to shut down work altogether as necessary. So would be happy to further this conversation offline and think about how we can do a better job of engaging those the construction sector directly and unions, and making clear what our expectations are for how people stay safe.
Look forward to it, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Ressler. A follow-up on your line of questioning for Deputy Chief. We, first, gratitude to our first responders who dive into dangerous conditions every single day. I'm reminded with Councilmember Ressler's remarks and questions about the horrible 3-alarm fires that we've had in the Bronx in recent years. Just this June, we had a 3-alarm fire that took down 3 houses on DeVoe Terrace in my district. And I remember walking around, I always try to stay, of course, out of the way of the first responders doing the important work, but I try to find neighbors who are affected or, who are curious and are sitting, and I try to tell folks, you really should get indoors. You should get somewhere where, the air is not as compromised. And I'm wondering if the fire department or any of your sister agencies, given that we do have similar conditions of bad air quality around the site of fires, if there's guidance that you have for the public, if there's any way that whether it's firefighters themselves or other workers, NISM workers, whoever, if there's any way that they are communicating to the public, and if there's anything that we should be taking from those instances, and Frank, you can answer this as well, right, because you're always on site as well, anything that we can learn from these instances at home to help protect us from the bad air quality that we're seeing in the city.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. It's an excellent one because unfortunately the byproducts of fire are going in the wrong direction with the introduction of synthetic materials and plastics. The toxins have become not only more varied but more quantity. The heat release rate is that much more as opposed to what we traditionally say would be a legacy fire, fire with materials that were many, many decades ago. What we do is, in any type of incident, whether it's a structure fire or some other kind of incident that maybe has a hazardous material, we base everything off a unified command post. So we would, we're there with all our representatives, certainly New York City Emergency Management. And we do, we are focused on the main function of fire suppression and rescue. However, we do have layers of chiefs that are looking at like the bigger picture, right? Like, and just as you mentioned, right? Where should we, if we need to evacuate, if we need to shelter in place? Sometimes sheltering in place is a better option depending on the type of building or the type of fire or incident. But we consider that at really at every type of fire incident, and we are working as well as to try to make sure that we are getting the word out. What could be the issues in that particular area. So as far as firefighters, we're keen to all those different topics that you all have brought. We follow a temperature humidity index. We make sure that our firefighters are not unnecessarily exposed to that heat. Obviously, we never stop responding, but maybe certain activity outdoors, like drills and things like that, we might curtail. And we are very, very focused on respiratory protection for our members to make sure that that they're doing their job. It's a dangerous job anyway, but to make sure that it's done safely.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation. I just think there's so much that our first responders, FDNY first responders, I feel like you have lungs of steel. I don't understand how they're able to go into these sites and just face all kinds of conditions. But I'm sure that there's so much that you all have learned and could be shared with the public. I have one more question, and just note to any colleagues that have additional, so you can get on stack. But I wanted, I'm not sure if, HPD is not here, so I'm not sure if there's anyone to answer this particular question, but on intro number 1404 regarding occupancy of cellars in certain 1 and 2 family dwellings, is someone here who can just get on the record about why this change is necessary, if there was thinking that the language in the administrative code right now was not straightforward enough?
I believe HPD is here, but the admin's position. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks for being here.
Take that back.
We'll administer the oath first. Thought I recognized you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and to answer all council member questions honestly?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm Stephen Erdman, the Assistant Commissioner for Homeownership Opportunities and Preservation at HPD. And thanks for the question about why we need to pass Intro 1404. So unfortunately, there was a drafting error when we passed legislation back in November to facilitate the creation of ADUs and the legalization of basement apartments across the city. So at the time, we failed to address a provision in the Housing Maintenance Code, 27-2087, that prohibits the use of cellars as apartments in new construction. So as a result, any new construction cellars can't be used as apartments. So this, we believe, is contrary to the intent of the bill that had been passed and the public representations that we made about that bill. And so that's the reason for Intro 1404 to correct that error, to facilitate, what we all had hoped would be possible back in November.
Excellent, thank you. Just wanted to make sure to get that on the record as well. Thank you. All right, with that, thank you so much to the members of the administration for your testimony today.
I was wondering
One
if,
second.
Chair, if you would indulge me, I would like to just speak a little bit about the single stair, just to be able to,
Absolutely.
just from a fire department standpoint
Please.
and life safety standpoint. So we have a lot of experience with, unfortunately, how challenging it is to fight fires in single stair buildings. And, you know, we have many of them, of course, right, because of different construction codes that were in existence at the time. But the stairway of a building, it's really at the core of any basic firefighting, life safety, search and rescue operation. And when we only have one single stairwell, we have to conduct two things at once, right? We have to be able to stretch hose lines. We can only stretch two up a single stairwell. And we also have to effect searches. We have to be able to, and people are evacuating at the same time. That stairwell can become really contaminated really fast. In 2017, we had a terrible tragedy on Prospect Avenue in the Bronx, not too far from the zoo, where really a basic fire, a stove fire really, was extended into the hallway. The occupants had fled, and you know we do try through our public safety campaign to try to really make sure that you know, to send that message that not only for yourself but your neighbors to close the door behind you. In this particular case, it wasn't done, and it completely rapidly contaminated the stairwell with heat and fire and toxic fumes, and led to the fatality of 14 people altogether. So it was really quite a tragic circumstance. So we really do try as much as we can to advocate for a second stairwell, and that's really helpful, not only, most importantly, for the life safety of the occupants, but also for our firefighting operations and our ability to do our job effectively. So just wanted to, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
No, thank you. That perspective is really important, right? I think a lot of us on the council, we believe that items should be debated and perspectives shared, so that is invaluable information and perspective. Thank you so much for that. Recognizing Councilmember Aviles.
I have a tendency to be like, I have the question now as you're leaving. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here today and the work that you do. I think under the guise of, many of you may have heard, one of major warehouses in Red Hook had a serious fire last week. I think this question of air quality certainly was on the top of residents' minds as this fire certainly ablazed, and it wasn't clear where they should be going to get information, right? As obviously the first responders were focused very much on making sure the building was safe and everyone was out. So I guess I wasn't sure if I clearly heard directions of what you would tell New Yorkers around where they should reach out to when they have those kinds of questions in the instances that arises. And also on the question of air quality and how, I guess, you know, given our recent history of, you know, all these climate events happening, what's the threshold that the city uses in terms of protocols to say, for a worker, it is not safe for you to be outside? So yeah, I'll stop there.
Well, thank you for the question. I can handle the fire if you want first. So any type of incident like that, we have a very robust hazardous materials response, and that's really it's really a force multiplier across all our units. Get it. Certain units have more expertise than others, but we always have a hazmat component that's on the scene. So when we have a fire such as that, they can begin to at least start to take some basic readings around the particular fire, right? So immediately we get some acute knowledge, right? Well, what's going on here? And many times it's what we would expect, right? But if we were to say, if we were to, on our instruments, be able to take out like higher readings or particularly, you know, worrisome contaminants, right? So we would take immediate actions, right? So that may be, say, somebody who's right next door. We might have to evacuate them, get them out of that particular plume or that particular area. But we would work very, very closely with the New York City Office of Emergency Management We needed the assistance of the New York City Police Department to be able to get people out of harm's way. And then from there, that would probably build out to public messaging if there was an area that needed to be, secured, or areas residents needed to be relocated along those lines. So it's kind of like it's an evolving type of event depending on the incident.
And so the teams were exceptional in their response, and they're working together, emergency management, and all the other city agencies in this instance. Folks were calling us, and we were like calling other people. So is 311 also an appropriate place to inquire these questions outside of our offices, or is there a NISM office where we could direct constituents to in these circumstances?
You want to take that one, Frank?
Good morning. Councilmember, my name is Frank McCartan. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Emergency Services, and I spent several years in this emergency world. And I did pass through NISM twice. I went through them twice for about 14 years. So I can speak a little bit about the Notify system. This would be a good way to plug, and I know Commissioner Iskra will be very happy that I'm plugging his Notify system, which has over 1 million people that subscribe to them. And you could do that via your zip code. It was created that way going back after the Deutsche Bank fire, where we had no way of communicating to people. So that is the primary way in which the City of New York communicates with the residents. They set up, it's an opt-in situation in which they can opt in. When there is a fire, anything above a second alarm or above, that Notify system is activated and sends out a message, which basically is telling the people in those areas to shelter in place, meaning stay in their homes, close their windows. It was a very thought-out process in which the Department of Health, Emergency Management in the city came up with the wording from it. So if you want to tell your folks to do anything, you can tell Commissioner Iskra that I told him to call you. You give him a call, and he'll give you all the flyers you want that you could put in your council office. And it's an opt-in thing, and I think it's a wonderful way in which the citizens of the City of New York are getting real-time information from the city, from the Emergency Operations Center, what they should be doing. So anytime there's an evacuation, anytime there's a NYPD issue, like there was one up in Midtown this morning, anytime there's any type of situation, that information comes from the Ops Center out to the citizens. So that's an opt-in, and that's the way you should tell your folks and your constituents to be able to communicate.
We'll continue to do so. Notify NYC is very helpful and multilingual, which is
311 too, by the way. 311 is a very good.
Yeah. So on the issue of air quality and kind of what's the kind of protocol and thresholds around air quality reaches a certain level? When are workers advised that they should be pulling back from their work sites?
I think I answered this earlier with the Councilman Russell. I think we need to have a communication a little bit more with all of us as a city, or how we go ahead and move ahead on that. And as I sit here and think to you, like, maybe I should think out loud, and maybe you'll be mad at me, but I think I was asked to look at everything when I came in these doors about 3 years ago, and I looked at the weather events, and I looked at the heat events, and I looked, now the air quality is coming up again. Maybe there's a threshold in which we work with NISM the same way we did with the heat, right? It hits the warning, we send out a notice to industry. I'm speaking out loud now. But I mean, maybe that's the way we go forth, and we would like to have a discussion with you if that's the way we move forward. I don't think that's a bad way of doing it, is sending a notice out to industry, so industry then has that information. So when they come in the morning, and I say they, the construction workers, they always have a pre-safety meeting, right? It's going to be hot today. It's going to be bad air today. Maybe they do things aside. I don't know what the issue, how we go forth with it, but I think it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, I think we're working on some potential legislation around this particular issue of air quality, and I think our unionized workforce has a good number of safety protocols in there for their workers. I think the concern is the non-unionized portion of the workforce and industry who may not be quite connected and could push their workers in very unsafe conditions. So I think it's a work in progress, and thank you for the consideration.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Aviles. With that, I want to thank the members of the administration for your testimony today. We'll be moving to public comment.
Thank you.
All right. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic of worker safety and the effects of climate change on labor, and the associated legislation, intros number 261, 1376, 1384, and 1404, as well as resolution number 1015. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. I will now call the first public panel. And excuse me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Matan Dinner from the New York City Controller's Office, Samuel Eluto from the Building Trade Employers Association, Pete Sikora from New York Communities for Change, John Killerman from Climate Jobs NYC, and Ken Schles, Food and Water Watch. And whoever is ready can begin when ready.
All right, let's go. My name is Pete Sikora. I'm with New York Communities for Change. Thanks so much for this opportunity to testify. It's not on the agenda today, but we wanted to urge the council members to co-sponsor Intro 1180 and the speaker to move it on an agenda. It would have been great to have seen it on today's agenda, but there's still time left in the session and it should move. Intro 1180 closes a loophole that Eric Adams, in his infinite wisdom, put into Local Law 97 by improperly using regulatory power. This council should override him on that move to protect jobs, lower utility bills, and prevent the climate crisis and improve air quality. I was up there when Local Law 97 passed. 92% of buildings are now, as of 2023 data, below Local Law 97's pollution limits. A full year before the law kicked in, 49% of multifamily is now below the law's pollution limits for 2030 to 2035. Both of those are huge improvements since the law passed. So congratulations to this council for moving that, because it is working. It's creating thousands of jobs, cutting utility bills, and cleaning up the air. That's great. It's relevant to the topic of this hearing on air quality. So the speaker should move it. We want to see it pass. There's 22 co-sponsors. Those of you who are not co-sponsors, please co-sponsor it. Councilmember Dinowitz, we'd love to have you on it. And it's great. You should pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Hello, my name's Ken Schles. I'm a Food and Water Watch volunteer leader. I want to thank Chair Sanchez and the Committee on Housing and Buildings for allowing me to speak. In looking at the effects of climate change on housing and labor, we should be talking about the restoration of New York's critical climate law, Local Law 97, and I urge the council to schedule a hearing on Councilmember De La Rosa and Ressler's Intro 1180. Mayor Adams' gutting of Local Law 97 is a textbook example of the corporate capture of a corrupted city government. Instead of faithfully protecting and implementing Local Law 97 as passed by the City Council, in its wisdom, the Adams administration has unceremoniously administratively eviscerated it. Local Law 97 is the world's most powerful urban law to tackle the climate crisis. Enacted in 2019 in recognition of the existential threat that climate breakdown represents to New York City, it set in motion the elimination of fossil fuel pollution in New York's largest buildings by demanding retrofits to antiquated heating and cooling systems. Disgracefully, as the law's timely and measured provisions were being implemented ahead of schedule and with near universal adherence, corrupt Mayor Adams, at the behest of the real estate lobby, administratively gutted the law, allowing polluting landlords to purchase compliance instead of actually eliminating pollution. In 2019, New York City declared a climate emergency. It's 2025. We must stop adding fuel to the fires. We call for a hearing on Intro 1180 to restore Local Law 97, pass Intro 1180, and protect our futures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Ludo. I'm the Director of Member Relations for the BTEA. I'd like to thank Chair Sanchez, Chair De La Rosa, and the members of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, as well as the Civil Service and Labor for holding this important hearing. On behalf of the entire board at BTEA, we greatly appreciate the introduction of Intro 1384 and the commitment to prioritizing the health and well-being of our workforce. The BTEA is made up of more than 1,200 union construction managers, general contractors, and specialty trade subcontractors across New York City. Our contractors set the standard for safety, maintaining the safest job sites in the nation. At the same time, we have been directly affected by the mental health and substance abuse crisis that continues to impact our workforce. Too many lives have been cut short, and the BTA is resolved to take action and be a part of the solution. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2023, nearly 16,000 construction workers nationwide died from opioid-related overdoses, and more than 5,000 died to suicide. Despite these staggering numbers, substance abuse and suicide remains a silent epidemic. Families often hesitate to speak publicly about overdose-related deaths or suicides, but the lack of publicity does not diminish the magnitude of the problem. The BTA is determined to confront the health crisis by providing resources focused specifically on mental health and substance abuse awareness. We host presentations, we distribute educational materials, and partner with leading nonprofits to expand support and break the stigma. We strongly support Intro 1384, as conversation and education are essential to addressing construction worker suicide and substance abuse, because SST cards are required for the vast majority of construction workers. This legislation has the potential to create profoundly positive impact across our industry. Too often, workers struggle to express feelings of depression, to ask for help, and incorporating this training into the SST framework will give them the tools and language necessary to do so in a familiar environment. We also support Intro 1376. We think that addressing both physical and mental health, this legislation will be an important resource for our members' safety directors, and thank you.
That was very impressive. Thank you.
I had a lot written down, so I wanted to get to it all.
Good morning to committee chairs and members. My name is Josh Kellerman. I'm the Director of Policy and Research at Climate Jobs New York. Climate Jobs New York is a coalition of labor unions representing 2.5 million workers at the center of New York's economy. We are united around a shared goal of combating climate change while reversing income inequality. We are heartened that your committee are paying close attention to worker safety and extreme weather. We must continue to draw attention to how climate change is impacting working people and seek solutions that mitigate these impacts and reduce our emissions while creating good union jobs for all people. As the committee report noted so well, outdoor workers will be disproportionately impacted by extreme heat, and among those outdoor workers, low-income workers of color and immigrant workers are most likely to be impacted. It is also important to note that union workers are much less likely to be impacted by extreme heat, as their collective bargaining agreements often already have provisions for worker health and safety, and empowered workers acting in solidarity are much better able to protect themselves from dangerous work conditions. A recent report by the Solidarity Center found that, quote, unionized workers experience half as much heat stress as non-unionized workers, and found that collective bargaining is the most effective form of collectively protecting workers from heat stress, end quote. Workers are the experts in their industry, and this shows up when workers are organized and have power. They not only demand to be protected, but they do so often in smart and innovative ways. Accordingly, lawmakers should consistently advocate for expanding workers' rights to organize free from intimidation and coercion, and where appropriate, all public work, including contracts and procurement, should have project labor agreements and labor peace agreements connected to them. We support Intro 1376, which requires the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to post worker guidance for best practices for protecting workers from extreme weather. This is an important step to ensuring workers have access to relevant information to keep themselves safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Matan Diner, and I serve as the Policy and Research Analyst for Workers' Rights at the Office of New York City Comptroller Brad Lander. Thank you to the Committee on Civil Service and Labor, the Committee on Housing and Buildings, and to Chairs De La Rosa and Sanchez for the opportunity to testify today. We thank the Council for holding this hearing on worker safety and the effects of climate change on labor, and applaud Councilmember De La Rosa for sponsoring Intro 1376, requiring the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to post best practices for protecting workers from extreme heat and weather. I'd also like to add the thank you to Councilmember Lincoln Ressler for his leadership in introducing a package of bills, Intro 71, 72, and 74, regarding the city's response to air quality emergencies, which are housed in another committee. With rising temperatures and worsening air qualities, it's essential for New York City to have stronger regulations in place to protect workers from the deadly risks of extreme heat, poor air quality, and other effects of our changing climate. That's why our office published a report last year titled Self-Guarding Outdoor Workers in a Changing Climate, authored by myself, our former Chief Climate Officer, Louise Young, and our Deputy Director for Workers' Rights, Rebecca Lynch. The report analyzes the health impacts of extreme temperatures and unsafe air quality, quantifies New York City's outdoor worker population, and identifies national best practices for labor standards. The report concludes with policy recommendations for New York City and state. Our report found that 1.4 million workers, or a third of New York City's workforce, work outdoors for prolonged periods of time. These workers are disproportionately composed of immigrants and Latino and Black New Yorkers. Extreme heat is the leading cause of weather-related deaths in the country and in New York City, and outdoor workers face significantly higher heat risks compared to the general public. Heat exposure can result in accidents and injuries on the job as well. To address this, our office recommends that city and state officials enact both employer requirements, like providing water, shade, and paid rest breaks, along with increased public health initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'd also just like to express my support for Co-Chair De La Rosa's Intro 1180 that we were not able to hear today. We need to find a way to, close loopholes and not allow renewable energy credits to be used in the wrong way. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to call on the next panel, Susan DeCarava, the News Guild of New York, Evan Simcoe Bednasky, the Daily News Union, Michael Sheridan, the New York Daily News Union, and Logan Needle, CWA District 1. You may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair De La Rosa and Chair Sanchez and esteemed members of the council. My name is Susan DeCarava. I am the president of the News Guild of New York, and I want to take a moment just to thank in particular Councilmember De La Rosa for her continued support in putting forth this resolution, and all the other council members who have continued to recognize the vital and necessary work that New York City's journalists provide for the people of this city. I'm here today with many of my members from the Daily News Union here at the table and also behind me in the chamber. Our local represents nearly 6,000 media professionals, of which the Daily News reporters are a part. They are hardworking journalists who, at every turn in this city's history, have been there to tell the story of its people. Beginning as the nation's first tabloid, the News has been the newspaper for everyday New Yorkers, winning multiple Pulitzer Prizes for stories that cover everything from horrific police brutality to the after effects of workers exposed to September 11th environmental toxins, to widespread abuse of eviction rules affecting immigrants, to everyday labor, health, and safety issues, many of which you addressed this morning. Unfortunately, we are faced with a crisis. Alden Global Capital, a predatory hedge fund with a rather notorious reputation, purchased the News in 2021. A former Washington Post media columnist, Margaret Sullivan, described Alden best. She said, "It is one of the most ruthless of the corporate strip miners, seemingly intent on destroying local journalism." Alden acquired the Daily News, adding it to its portfolio, which now makes it the owner of the second largest newspaper chain in the country, and this has had a profound effect on the coverage that the newsroom has been able to provide to New York. Alden Global Capital is led by its managing director, Heath Freeman, has a playbook that it follows when it comes to local news. It acquires the property, strips out all the assets and liquidates it, slashes staff, and freezes salaries. Here in New York, Alden sold off the New Jersey printing plant, pocketing $90 million as it moved print operations to a more distant location. Did we see any of that money? No. New York did not benefit from that sale. Instead, Alden slashed staff, cut salaries, and froze funding for the newsroom. Our editorial staff at the Daily News has shrunk to 65 employees tasked with covering a city of 8.5 million people. Many of those who remained after the acquisition by Alden have either had their salaries cut or frozen. None of the asset sales that Alden has engaged have in any way benefited in an investment in the newsroom or an investment in this city. Those profits have gone directly into the pockets of Alden and its partners. In 2021, the journalists at the Daily News unionized with our union, the News Guild of New York. They understood that collectively, as a union, that was their best possible way to protect their work from the ravages of Alden and their partners. And as Alden continues to devour more newspapers, including most recently its failed attempt to buy the Dallas Morning News, they have grown increasingly intransigent at the table, refusing to agree to a contract with the Daily News Union with anything close to a living wage. We are fighting at the table for everything. We want our members to have, as every New Yorker should have, job security, living wages, PTO, paid time off, affordable health care, and the ability to plan for their future and for their families, for retirement. Just as a small example, Alden reps want our union to accept a starting salary of $55K, which is nearly $6,000 less than the bare minimum.
If you can summarize, we're a bit over time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
We very much appreciate this resolution. We urge all the council members to support it. It necessarily and urgently calls out Alden for its hostile and predatory actions against everyday New Yorkers. Without the journalists who make up what is left of the newsroom of the New York Daily News, so much of the daily life of New York City and what makes it great will be lost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning and greetings to Chair De La Rosa and Sanchez and all the members of the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. My name is Michael Sheridan, and I'm a video and photo editor at the New York Daily News. I also serve as the unit chair of the New York Daily News Union and have been part of the bargaining committee. The Daily News has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. My father, Dick Sheridan, started working there in the 1980s when I graduated, and when I graduated high school in 1993, my first job was as a copy boy, one of the last generation of copy boys to work at the newspaper, thanks to the advent of digital technology. I've left and returned to the paper a few times over the decades, but have been working there since 2006. There isn't a job I have not done at the News. I've taken photos, reported stories, laid out pages, edited pictures, edited videos, and written headlines. I even wrote a car column for the paper for about a year. I have never in my life set out to be a newspaper man, but life had other plans. So when I speak about the Daily News, I do so as someone who has spent most of my life being a part of what I sincerely believe to be the greatest city newspaper in the country. And it simply breaks my heart to watch it and the immensely talented and dedicated people who fill its pages be treated so unfairly and dismissively by Alden Global Capital, the hedge fund that has owned the tabloid for the last 4 years. For more than 3 years, we have been fighting for nothing more than a fair contract in the nation's most expensive city, a fair contract in a city of more than 8 million people where news breaks day and night. And you won't find a more dogged collection of reporters and photographers than those at the Daily News. These people bleed ink. They love what they do, and they care about their city, and what they want isn't anything different than what everyone wants: fair wages, job security, decent health care. They want to know that if they get sick, it won't cost them a day's pay. They want to know that if they get called to jury duty, they won't get penalized and lose one of the handful of days off they get each year. They want to know that they'll be able to buy groceries without taking out a loan and still be able to make their rent at the end of the month. But Alden Global Capital doesn't seem to care about its employees or investing in its newspapers. They don't seem to care about journalism, despite owning hundreds of newspapers across the country. The only papers they seem to actually care about are the dollars they take away from the men and women who cover this city and many other towns and cities throughout the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair De La Rosa. Good morning, Chair Sanchez. Good morning, council members. My name is Evan Simko-Bednarski, and I'm the transit reporter for the New York Daily News and the vice unit chair for the Daily News Union. I'm here today to express my support and that of the Daily News Union's unionized reporters, photographers, and editors for Resolution 1015. The Daily News has been a part of the fabric of New York City for more than 106 years. With our big front page fonts and our blunt tabloid talks, we've stood up for everyday New Yorkers like us. Whether it was dubbing Queens Boulevard the Boulevard of Death and getting the city to kick off decades of street safety improvements that are still underway, or being the first to sound the alarm after September 11th that the air downtown wasn't nearly as safe as those in power would have had us believe, the Daily News has always stood on the side of our neighbors, the regular, everyday New Yorkers trying to carve out a life in this town. Personally, I grew up reading baseball stats in the news at my grandfather's kitchen table. I can't overstate what an honor it is to get to write for that same paper today as I raise my 2 sons in Brooklyn. But the systematic disinvestment that has come at the hands of our owner, private equity raider Heath Freeman and his firm Alden Global Capital, threatens to undo the reputation that generations of reporters before me have built and the trust they've earned among New Yorkers. My colleagues and I are a skeleton crew. We have no newsroom. Reporters who leave are not replaced. We have no reporter in Albany covering the state capitol or the governor. We have reporters assigned to courts in only 2 of the 5 boroughs. There are so few editors at any given time that stories we file from the field bunch up like so many delayed subway trains. We reporters have on more than one occasion gathered around one another's kitchen after hours to talk through important stories in lieu of editorial meetings. We love what we do. And I think that if you ask our colleagues at other outlets, the folks down in room 9 right now, or the many flacks that populate this building, they'll tell you, maybe begrudgingly, that we're pretty good at it. That despite all this disinvestment, we are still holding power to account in this city. We're still out there knocking on doors, riding the trains, and working the phones to get stories that no one else has. And all we're asking in return is that we be able to afford to live in this city. We're asking for a modest wage increase to keep up with our rent. We're asking for affordable health care, especially for our part-time workers. We're asking for parental leave so that my colleagues and I can raise our families in New York. Heath Freeman made $90 million in one fell swoop selling our printing plant in Jersey City. All we're asking is that some of that money that we make for him get put back into our newspaper. What we're asking for isn't radical. We want a fair contract that makes it possible for us to keep doing our jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairs De La Rosa, Sanchez, and all the council members. My name is Logan Needle. I'm the New York State Deputy Political Director for the Communications Workers of America, District 1. We represent about 145,000 workers across CWA local unions in New York, New Jersey, New England, and Eastern Canada. Our members work in telecommunications, healthcare, higher education, manufacturing, broadcast and cable television, commercial printing and newspapers, and state and local and county government, among other job titles that keep New York City running. Alden Global Capital, a predatory hedge fund with the moniker Destroyer of Newspapers,
is lining their pockets at the expense of essential, high-quality local journalism, both nationally and here in New York City. In 2021, Alden acquired New York's hometown newspaper, and since then, the New York Daily Newsroom, as you've heard, has been decimated, a blueprint they have followed in local newsrooms across the country. The Daily News staff has been fighting for a fair contract for 3 years, fighting for straightforward terms that would allow them to continue doing their jobs with dignity. Fair wage floors and guaranteed annual cost of living raises in one of the most expensive cities in the world. Job protections and fair benefits for part-time workers. Job security provisions that protect their work from being subcontracted permanently. Maintaining standard benefits like time off, sick time, parental leave, and 401k match. We are seeing a concerning trend regarding the treatment of journalists. Local newsrooms are under attack, profit is prioritized over coverage, and reporters and outlets have been barred from covering press conferences. At the same time, and not unrelatedly, we're seeing a rise in authoritarianism and attempts to roll back basic democratic rights. Now is the time to increase our investment in local journalism, ensuring institutions are held accountable and that independent sources are delivering the news. We cannot allow a hedge fund who is not invested in the future of our city to compromise the quality of the Daily News' 106-year-old newsroom. Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa's resolution sends a clear and strong message to Alden Global Capital. The cuts they've made to the Daily News, their hostility towards unionized journalists, and their refusal to reach a fair contract are unacceptable. We urge you to stand with New York's hometown paper and pass this resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I want to thank the panel for being here. To the Daily News Union, to all of the journalists that have told us their stories repeatedly, the News Guild, CWA, thank you all for organizing. You know, it's really sad that we have to be here, tacking this reso to this worker safety hearing, but I want to make the connection there. When corporate greed looks to decimate workplaces, it impacts all workers across the board. In a moment where our democracy is under attack, the free press that is thriving is vital, is the forefront of that fight. And when I hear your testimonies about the things you're asking for in these contracts, wages to afford to live in the city, health care for part-time workers, dignity and respect for people who have kept our hometown paper going, it's not only sad, it is embarrassing that we've allowed companies like Alden Capital to continue to do business in our city with no remorse and with no consequence. I do want to ask 2 questions of the panel. And again, I thank you for your time, but I wanna know from your perspective, and anyone on the panel can answer, how does the reduction of Daily News staff affect coverage of worker safety and other labor issues across our city?
Well, thank you, Councilmember De La Rosa. I think the impact is pretty profound, actually. Journalists speak truth to power. They ask necessary questions. They shine light in places where oftentimes someone doesn't want light to be shown. And that is a fundamental public service. That is part of the core of what makes journalists so central to the functioning of our democracy. They also tell workers' stories. Journalists are themselves workers, lest we not forget. And when we talk about, some of the health and safety issues that this committee was interrogating earlier, whether we're talking about fire codes, fire safety codes, or the impact of the environmental crisis on the health of people that work outside. When we're talking about, I think about actually, not that long ago, I was speaking at the anniversary of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, and the fact that journalists are called the first draft of history for a reason. We know these stories and the reforms that came out of these tragedies because of the work that people like our Daily News members who are fighting tooth and nail to be able to do that work unrestrained. Because of that, we know about these things, and we're able to make a difference. They are able to make a difference in the lives of everyday New Yorkers. There is no dedicated labor reporter at the Daily News. There is no dedicated health and safety reporter at the Daily News. And the fact is that when we don't pay attention to these issues, what ends up happening is Alden Global Capital ends up determining what it is New Yorkers know about their own city, about their own safety, about what they're entitled to, about what they should be asking for. And so you end up having this amorphous entity that is basically a billionaire slush fund determining what you know, what vital information you are or are not getting. And they don't do it obviously. It's not because they're turning to a reporter and saying, you can't report on this. They do it by defunding the newsroom. They do it by withholding the possibility of having a real career, of being able to sustain a family, so that people leave the profession, they leave the newsroom, they don't come back, and we lose that insight, we lose those voices, and we lose those people asking the very necessary questions as to why something happened. And I would further add that without having that kind of investment and constant reinvestment in the Daily News in particular, as New York's hometown paper, but also in local news in general, it means that we don't even have the opportunity perhaps to prevent the tragedies from happening in the first place, because there aren't enough reporters to cover the stories and ask the questions before we get to a crisis point. And that is a profound impact on all of us.
Thank you.
You don't know what you can't, if you don't know what to ask for, then we're in trouble.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
The reporting on a single incident is relatively easy, but reporting on the trends, reporting on the failures that lead to a specific incident, reporting on the culture of worker safety or lack thereof in any of our beats takes time. It takes time to talk to sources. It takes time to parse rumor from fact. And that is time that we don't have if we need to end our day early because we can't afford childcare. It's time that we don't have if we can't meet in a newsroom to collaborate amongst ourselves. The work that we do the work that is representative of the best of the daily news requires a level of consistency and a level of collaboration that it's difficult to do while making not enough to live in the city.
Thank you. I just want to join in all of Councilmember De La Rosa's, sentiments and statements shared. I'm completely in agreement, and view the media as the fourth branch of government in many ways, right? You are able to sometimes show up even in the face of these cuts. The Daily News and our local outlets throughout the city are able to show up and highlight issues sometimes before we hear about what is going on. And that is a partnership that allows us to work with our council, to work with our colleagues, to identify legislation that can protect New Yorkers. So just joining myself to those statements. We have a question from Councilmember Caban, and I'll quickly ask this question in connection to some of your testimony. You said that what we're seeing Alden Global Capital do here in the city of New York with the Daily News is a part of their playbook. And so I'm wondering if you could share examples of newsrooms in other parts of the country that have faced these sort of attacks, I will call them, and how they were able to fight back or not fight back in other parts of the country.
I can answer that question, Councilmember Caban, very generally and broadly speaking.
Sorry, that's my question.
Oh, that was your question. Oh, I'm sorry.
She will have a better question,
okay.
I promise.
Okay. I can answer that question broadly. As you understand, I'm sure, we have been very singularly focused on the Daily News fight, which we've been in for 3 years. But we do know that in other papers across the country, if you think about Chicago or recently their aborted attempt in Dallas, and in other local Tribune-owned papers, they have essentially followed this playbook, right? They sold off the real estate, so a lot of times the newsroom doesn't exist anymore, and then the cost of maintaining a home office and all that implies, as Michael and Evan talked about, is shifted on to reporters. They have consistently suppressed wages. We are, as I mentioned in my testimony, fighting to raise the minimum wage, the floor of which people are paid at the Daily News, and that is higher than anywhere else in the country at any other newspaper that Tribune owns. We have been fighting to maintain retirement benefits, so 401k benefits, which they canceled at other papers, or they grandfathered in for a specific period of time and then they retire so that new hires will not have the same 401k retirement benefits that existing employees do. They have consistently left positions unfilled. This is one of their biggest tactics in terms of reducing the size, so they can't say that they've laid off anybody or intentionally targeted anybody. They just made the working environment so untenable that when people leave and then they don't fill the positions, the amount of work that's required gets spread among a smaller and smaller number of journalistic staff. Part of what we are fighting against here in Daily News is trying to go against that trend and that tide, which they have established at all the other Tribune newspapers across the country. And it is, I mean, we've been at it for 3 years. Many of our counterparts have similarly fought really long and hard, sometimes longer than 3 years, frankly, for first contracts. It's really disheartening to see. And I think the one thing that has helped, is our members' commitment to each other and to the work that they do. In spite of the long time that it takes to get to a contract, the solidarity and the understanding. I mean, our members are so deeply invested. You heard it in the testimony today. No one becomes a journalist because they're going to become rich. They become a journalist because they want to tell the stories and ask the questions, because they feel that there's something important that must be conveyed. And they're deeply mission-driven, oftentimes more mission-driven than the entities that they work for. And that is the thing that sustains them. And it fuels their solidarity and their commitment to supporting each other and helping each other kind of raise the levels however we can through collective bargaining.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that we're joined by Councilmember Bottcher and turn it over to Councilmember Caban.
Thank you. I have so many thoughts here, and I want to share some of them before I get to my question. But you know, there's this one piece of the fact that you all are workers, and every single worker deserves a living wage, a dignified workplace, no matter what the work is. And then we put the work that you all do in the context of this moment, of this political moment, the state of our government, not just local, but global politics. I think about, you know, other newspapers that kind of were, in some ways, our hometown newspapers also deciding to focus on national news and giving up that local coverage and lens. I think about, from somebody who, you know, is a nerd and admires the work of historians and how critical it is that they are able to come back and look at archives that are hyper local to understand who we are, where we're going, how do we make the changes we want to see in the future, and how critical your work is to that. And then finally, I just want to say, like, thank goodness you guys are fighting. Thank goodness you are persevering, because we often talk about right now local government being the front lines, but local news, local journalists are absolutely the front lines in the face of fascism, in the face of a democracy that's in danger. So thank you for continuing your fight. I don't even think I can articulate how important it is that you all are supported to do the very, very critical work that you do. But here's my question to you. How can the public and electeds support daily news workers who are fighting for their livelihood, who are fighting to save the paper, and who, you know, like even bigger than that, like fighting to be a part of protecting our democracy?
I think for the most part that what people need to be aware of, and it's kind of a hard message to get out, is that local journalism matters. I think, you know, journalists are not the most popular people on the planet. Maybe up where somewhere around politicians, but maybe somewhere around there. But but I feel like people mix up mainstream commentators on cable news networks with journalists.
Pundits versus journalists.
Right, who are the people that are covering local governments, that are covering incidents that happen in the cities, in your local towns. And they mix all that stuff up, and then everybody kind of gets jumbled into that one bunch. And I think it's important to kind of keep in mind that local journalism matters more than anything else when it comes to news and information. I mean, national news wouldn't even exist without local news coverage. And I think it's just really important to kind of define those differences and to support local journalism as much as possible. If that means just, buying a newspaper from time to time, then do that. Subscribe to your local newspapers. And that's the best way to show support for local journalism, because it matters. And I think, for the most part, the people who are covering in local journalism are, they're residents and they're neighbors just like you. And I think that's what the most important thing is, and the best way that people can help support them is just by simply ingesting that information and not confusing them with, commentators.
Councilmember, I spent several years of my career working at a national cable news outlet, and the first task at every 6 a.m. shift was to read all of the local papers for the region. When those go away, there's nothing. There's no news that trickles up. Even the largest cable news outlets, they only have a handful of teams to send all over the country. We know things in this country because there are local newspapers that find them out. And without that, our information space gets much worse.
I would just like to add that we have seen over the past 5 years an incredible wave of unionization in newsrooms across the country, and it has been precisely to push back against what we see as the decimation of local news, where reporters are realizing that the only way to maintain the standards and the ethics of what they do is to come together and to fight for it and to make the public aware that this is what they're fighting for. When the public is angry at media, it's not the people doing the work itself that should carry the brunt of that criticism. It's the bosses and the companies that are deciding how those newsrooms get funded, which directly impacts what kind of news people are actually receiving.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think we have one more question, a round of questions from Councilmember Ressler, and we'll call up our next panel.
Thank you so much, Chair Sanchez and Chair De La Rosa, and credit again to Chair De La Rosa for this important resolution. And thank you to Logan and Susan and the CWA team for your great leadership. I just would love if you could help me. My recollection was like back when the Tribune Company owned the Daily News, they cut the newsroom in half by about 50% about a decade ago. And since Alden has taken over, we've seen significant further cuts. Could you just help me walk through what have been the cuts in the newsroom staffing since Alden has come in?
Well, yeah, when Tribune took over in 2018, they decimated the newsroom. Alden came in a few years after that. They were slowly kind of buying their way into Tribune, and there was a battle for a while, as I understand it, and then they eventually took over the Daily News along with several other newspapers. Since then, it's really just been a case of a slow, progressive measures of letting the staff get smaller and smaller on its own by just simply making it a more difficult place to work at. Yeah. The people that leave for better and opportunities, because they're all extremely talented people, they don't get replaced. There are positions that are just left unfilled. This goes not just on the reporter end, but on the editor side. I mean, the number of editors that we have has dwindled to just a handful, which in a city like this and where we're in the midst of having to deal with breaking news coverage, it is virtually impossible to get things out in a timely fashion like we used to. I used to run the national desk on the website in the mornings, and we used to be dealing with a lot of breaking news, mostly crime stories or things like that, where it's like you had to move at lightning speed and get stories out there. You got to get them on the site, get them out on socials, got to get them out as quickly as possible. And that came with a lot of people working together and making things happen quickly and efficiently. And that becomes more and more difficult when you have fewer and fewer people dealing with multiple things at any given time. That's been probably the largest effect that their apathetic treatment to the newspaper has been, because the interest of Alden has never, as far as I've seen, been about investing in and building journalistic institutions like the Daily News and making them better. They're only interested in siphoning whatever money they can get off of it, regardless of what happens to the newspapers that they own. And that's been my experience for the last 4 years under Alden, of just watching it dwindle slowly through their inaction.
Yeah. I mean, I like to just remind people that the districts that each of us represent are each significantly larger than New Haven, right? So think about that. 51 council districts that are each quite a bit larger than the city of New Haven, and yet the media landscape as a whole is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and there's less attention, less eyeballs, less oversight, less effort to hold the powers that be accountable. And the Daily News has been, just a critical paper of record that provides necessary information to all of us each and every day. I remember when there was a Brooklyn office, and there were designated Brooklyn reporters, and there was reporters covering the courthouses in Brooklyn every day. There were reporters who were paying attention to local issues across our neighborhoods and districts. And as we've seen the paper just shrink and shrink and shrink, there just isn't bandwidth to do it anymore. And you all do the work. I mean, the journalists at the Daily News do an impressive job covering education, covering transportation like Evan, covering our criminal justice system like Graham, and many other, covering City Hall right here. But New Yorkers deserve more robust coverage. They deserve, and the workers deserve, decent wages, decent benefits. We can see what Alden is doing, and these efforts to shrink the paper really undermine integrity in New York City government and undermine our ability to hold the rich and powerful and influential in New York accountable. And we need you out there, and we have your back 1,000% of the way to get the contract that you deserve. Anything that I can do to help and my colleagues can do to help, we're fully here for it.
And I just want to note that there, in addition to just letting people go and not replacing them, I mean, there have been buyouts, and they ended our internship programs. They've found other ways of sort of cutting the staff and ultimately putting more of a burden on the individual people who still remain.
Yeah, look, we need a strong Daily News. We understand that the paper is a kind of shadow of what it was, but there's still many, many great people doing essential work every day, and you deserve our support. And I hope that in the not distant future, we'll be talking about, improved worker retention and growing the paper because what you all do is really valued.
And it's always important to me, like, I agreed to the sentiment that the Daily News is a shadow of what it used to be, but I just always want to counter that with the idea that there is nothing that has diminished in the dedication of the people, the men and women, and the photographers and the journalists who work there in terms of their compassion and their dedication to doing their jobs.
I do want to jump in very quickly, Councilmember, and just say in terms of, while it has been an attrition, that attrition has had real effects. We don't have a Metro editor. We don't have a politics editor. We don't have an Albany reporter. We are down to two very talented court reporters in Brooklyn and in Manhattan. There are, just because it's not one massive, cleaver across the newsroom, doesn't mean that there haven't been tangible cuts. No enterprise editor, which speaks to the larger, how do you cover safety? How do you cover trends? How do you make sense of what happens in a town of more than 8 million people? When you can't zoom out and have people whose job it is to guide that. So there have been some very, tangible, if not cuts, absences.
It's well said. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you. I want to thank this panel, and we're going to call the next panel.
Thank you.
Brendan Griffith from the Central Labor Council. And I'd like to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilmember Hudson.
Good morning, council members. Much better, much better. A couple more minutes of morning. My name is Brendan Griffith, and I am the president of the New York City Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO. The New York City Central Labor Council, representing more than 300 affiliated unions and over 1 million working people across all 5 boroughs, supports Resolution 1015-2025, condemning Alden Global capital cuts and managerial hostility towards unionized daily news staff, and calling on the hedge fund to reach a contract deal with the newspaper's union. Given the assaults on free speech, democracy, and truth, now is a critical moment for newspapers to invest in their workers and staff. The unionized journalists at the Daily News have been fighting for 3 years to secure fair workplace standards in the face of Alden's refusal to bargain in good faith. Alden Global Capital earned its reputation as the destroyer of newspapers by slashing staff and hollowing out newsrooms across the country, from Chicago to Oakland to Baltimore. New York has not been spared either. Since acquiring the Daily News in 2021, Alden has sold off its printing plant and offices for $90 million, gutted its newsroom, and left just 65 journalists to cover a city of 8.5 million people. The Daily News and its journalists serve an essential function in our city. For more than a century, they have chronicled the hearings, elections, and everyday struggles that shape our communities. Their reporting has won Pulitzer Prizes and held power to account, while also ensuring that no story, big or small, goes untold. And when these newsroom jobs are undermined, it's not only workers who suffer, it's the entire city that will lose. The unionized staff at the Daily News are seeking standards that will safeguard the future of local journalism. Fair wage floors and cost of living adjustments, equitable treatment for part-time employees, protections against subcontracting, and preservation of their benefits. These are basic common sense measures to ensure the stability of the newsroom and the ability of journalists to serve the public. The New York City Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO, urges the council to pass Resolution 1015. This resolution will send a clear message that New York City will not tolerate predatory corporate practices that strip workers of their dignity and communities of their voice. Labor is proud to stand in solidarity with the journalists of the Daily News, and we call on Alden Global Capital to reach a fair contract without delay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and for your continued solidarity and partnership in getting this to the finish line.
Thanks.
Thank you. I would like to call the next panel, consisting of Clifton Smith, Christopher Leon Johnson, Tabitha Ward, and Tony. I know it's not Alice, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Alice Nascimento. Whoever's ready can begin when ready.
Hello. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I know I have 2 minutes, but I want to give my first shout out to the Daily News Union. I support that resolution. Free Chris Summerfelt. I'm calling on the City Council with the help. Free Chris Summerfelt. I want to call for the City Council to make a bill to ban Caleb Malmack Altus from serving the next administration. It does not matter if it's the Cuomo administration or Madani administration. Caleb Malmack Altus should be barred from serving in the next mayor administration because she's a cancer to Room 9. She's a cancer to New York City. I want to make clear that I support the bill intro 1384. I believe that 1384 should be passed. I support this. Follow up from Friday's hearing with Linda Lee. We need more of this training inside not only the OSHA trainings, we need this inside the SST trainings too. This is a big problem in the city of New York. Another thing I'm going to show my support is to Intro 1376. I support that. Problem is the real estate developers and these companies support Intro 1180 New York City Council. I'm showing support for, and I think, and yeah, so basically, Intro 376, the deliveries should get paid more money on days off. I mean, on hot days. Anytime over 80 degrees, they should get paid a higher wage. But going back to Resolution 1015, like I said, the city council, with the help of these unions, should make a bill to make it where that people from, Caleb McAltis should be barred from serving the mayor's administration. So, like I said, this city council needs to find a way to make sure that lady does not serve in the next administration, because she's going to really, it doesn't matter who becomes a mayor, like Cuomo or Modani. But if she still stays as a press secretary or the deputy press or the press mayor communications, she's going to make it way worse than Adams. So it's going to be a continuation of Adams. So I hope the city council find a way to really call her out for what she did as the press secretary, making this whole city look like a problem. So like I said, I support these bills. Shout out to the Daily News Union, free Chris Summerfelt. And for more thing I said, the Liberistas. Shout out to the Liberistas, but they need more protections in these bills too. So Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that Councilmember Felice is on Zoom.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Smith. I'm organized with the Food and Water Watch. So I want to thank for the Food and Water Watch to be here. So the reason why I testified because the local 97 is still have time. We need to pass local 97 to demand local 97s to pass it in for 1180 because of the climate motorized act is this because everything is that we are planning to reduce the 80%, reduce it in the citywide by 2050, with a nearly 70% of the New York City carbon emission can be attacked back to the fossil fuel used to the heat, cool, power, and its building. Local 97 addressing this issue by setting immigrants' carbon emission limits for the city largest building, with the first competitive building for local 97 already extended, and still have we still have time to building and reporting that we have to prepare for the DOB. Not sure if it's what's the next step is going to be. Our team is here to guide through the process to ensure your building stay on track. So we have to please. So which means that we got about 25 years from now. Okay. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for having me once again.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Tabitha Ward, and I would like to ask the support from the council for the housing vouchers that New York City, New York State, and even the United States of America, that they are directly deposited to the housing voucher recipients. That would include City FEPS, Section 8, Section 9, and any other housing program. Currently, they are being paid directly, either through a check or through direct deposit to the landlords. By allowing the housing vouchers to be directly deposited or directly given to the housing recipients, they can be directly deposited either on their benefit cards or through directly deposited into their checking accounts. This will allow the recipients to have a say and control in where they live, how they live, and it will eliminate slumlords.
As it stands today, the landlords have no reason or no incentive to make repairs or to ensure that the person is living in a safe and healthy environment. But by allowing the housing voucher recipients to directly receive the full award amount, by allowing them to receive the full award amount, they will be able to control where they live. They can choose where they can live within their payment ranges. And if they choose to live in a place that is more than what they are receiving, they'll have to pay that directly themselves. And I could, even though we don't have enough time, I would like to share a story about my experience. I'm a recipient of the City FEPS housing voucher. I live in a payment, a low-income housing, not NYCHA, but low-income housing. And my landlord, he did not provide the adequate information to the city marshal's office, and they put a lock on my door. And I went down to City FEPS and I showed proof that my payments were being made, and the judge had them remove the locks from the doors.
Thank you. I believe you are not in the right hearing. This hearing is about the impacts of climate change on labor.
Yes.
There is a hearing at 1 p.m. about housing vouchers, so I'm not sure if you want to sign up for that one.
Absolutely.
But thank you for your testimony. It's on the record either way, and thank you to this panel.
Thank you.
That's across. That's the one that's across. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we will now turn to remote testimony. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you and the sergeant at arms will give you the go-ahead to begin. Please wait for the sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. Next is Aliyah Sumru.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Aliyah Sumro, and I'm the Deputy Director for New York City Policy at the New York League of Conservation Voters. Thank you, Chairs Sanchez, De La Rosa, and committee members for the opportunity to testify. I have submitted longer written comments. As the climate crisis continues to wreak havoc on our residents and environment, and given the Trump administration's hostility to any environmental, public health, and worker safety policies, NYLCV urges New York City and New York State to take leadership to develop labor standards, mitigation measures, and public education campaigns in light of the climate and public health emergencies, such as extreme heat events and air quality emergencies. When it comes to our city's workforce, about a third of New York City's workforce work outdoors for prolonged periods of time. These figures are conservative underestimates, given many outdoor workers, such as street vendors, app-based workers, and day laborers, are self-employed and not captured by official data sources. On top of this, the climate crisis is colliding with the city's affordability crisis, and it highlights the need for worker protection since outdoor and/or low-income workers have to risk their health and sometimes their lives in order not to miss a paycheck. NYLCV supports Intro 1376, requiring DOHMH to post on the department's website information on best practices for protecting workers from extreme weather. We recommend adding that the legislation take into account best practices for protecting outdoor workers during extreme rainfall and flooding as well. NYLCV also calls for more comprehensive solutions tailored to different weather-related emergencies and different types of workers. This includes mandatory rest and water breaks, access to bathrooms, drinking water, shade, cooling, face masks, as well as heat illness prevention and emergency response plans. We are aligned with the Comptroller's report recommendations on public health initiatives as well. On the flip side, the climate crisis also presents an opportunity for a just transition and increasing well-paying green jobs in the public and private sector.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Great. I'm just going to wrap up. Green job opportunity.
Thank you, Alia. We have to move to the next panelist, who is Kate Leach.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Sanchez, De La Rosa, and members of the committees. My name is Kate Leach, and I'm a senior policy analyst at the Citizens Housing and Planning Council. We're an 88-year-old policy and research organization. I'm pleased to testify today in strong support of Intro 1404, which clarifies the administrative code regarding cellar occupancy. This is an important and timely clarification. By explicitly aligning the administrative code with the reforms that were enacted at the end of 2024, which include zoning for housing opportunity, Local Law 126, and Local Law 127, the Council ensures that those changes can work as intended. Together, these reforms create a more promising path to bring basement and cellar apartments into safe and legal use. Intro 1404 closes a lingering gap that could otherwise undermine that progress, and we applaud the Council for sustaining its commitment to this issue. By, unfortunately, clarifying this law is only the first step. The City must now follow through with implementation of the state-authorized conversion program by issuing rules that govern financing and tenant protections, establishing an implementation committee across agencies and stakeholders, partnering with trusted community-based organizations, and setting clear benchmarks so that the Council and the public can hold government accountable. New Yorkers are living in these units today outside of government oversight. Each day of delay risks their lives, perpetuates instability, and narrows the window for low and moderate income homeowners to participate in the pilot. Thank you for your time and your leadership on this issue.
Thank you so much for your testimony. If we have inadvertently missed anyone that has registered to testify today and has yet to be called, please use the Zoom raise hand function if you are testifying remotely, and you will be called in the order that your hand has been raised. If you are testifying in person, please visit the Sergeant at Arms. Seeing none, we will now close the hearing. Thank you to the members of the administration and the members of the public who have joined us today. This hearing is adjourned.